Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Fun and Games Podcast. I'm Geoff Moonen,
And I am at AK Stormageddon.
and you're listening to episode 194. And this episode might seem like previous episodes, but there's been some small tweaks, some small improvements, and we're going to charge you so much for it because we are talking a little bit about the console launch of the Nintendo Switch 2, console launches in general, but I think that's going to be our focal point here.
It is rare that Geoff and I cover a console launch because, well, for those who've been listening since episode 1, we spectacularly failed at that. We recorded a Switch episode before the Switch came out, but didn't air because we didn't get our shit together till after the Switch came out. But we played it as, well, what did we get right? What did we get wrong? And it worked out.
I think it was a really kind of a fun format. Sometimes you just fall backwards into something cool.
Yeah. And then with the launch of the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and S being a shit show as far as trying to get consoles on time, I didn't get one till almost a year later. Geoff after that. Whereas the Switch 2 was a console that Geoff and Sarah were on the fence about, but were thinking about, and I was obsessively wanting to get it day one. And we all ended up getting it day one anyway. And so with having it so soon, and this being an episode that comes out only like a month basically into its existence, I thought it would be fun to do some first impressions of the Switch 2, because this also, I think, at least for me and you, Geoff, is a pretty seminal console for us because we're Nintendo fans first, but also we both really loved the Switch as this kind of hybrid console.
Yeah, it's been, as of when we're recording this, just over a month since the June 5th release of the Nintendo Switch 2. And it is very funny that, yeah, Sarah and I had that feeling of, it'll happen, we're not chomping at the bit, but there were those, okay, you can order it this time window. And we went, let's give it a try. And it worked because there actually was enough consoles this time. Contrary to so many other console launches, there was enough supply. And I think also given political climate of tariffs and finances, certainly in America right now, there was also that bit of worry in getting these things. The prices on this are also not without controversy.
Yeah, the price hike caught a lot of folks off guard. I wasn't super surprised. I was more surprised about the price hike of the Nintendo first-party titles, like that Mario Kart was going to be $70 or $80 separate, but only $50 with the bundle, which is why I got the bundle. It means getting a digital version, but that's a whole other can of worms to deal with the Switch, which we'll talk about. I was more excited to have a Switch 2, less so for the launch titles of this console, because my spiritual launch title is Donkey Kong, which comes out in only a couple of weeks from when we're recording. My Switch OLED was starting to show its age, especially with certain games, and so I was just excited to have more powerful hardware. And for the indie games we play regularly, not really necessary, but some indie games that use polygonal graphics do suffer in frame rate. Everything, which I hope to have a proper review on the Patreon at some point about, it has a polygonal 3D layout, even though the characters and the character art are 2D, and it chugged on the Switch. But it runs great on the Switch 2. There are certain games that have been given updates for the Switch 2, but for the most part, it also is more powerful, and like a more powerful PC, can kind of just boost the basics a little bit, which makes it an effective console and a unique console in the sense that this is the first Nintendo Direct sequel. Every other console, even the Wii U, arguably, was not a sequel Wii. It was different. It had a lot different about it. Whereas this is basically, at least at this point, until we see more with the mouse controls, a more powerful version of the thing that came before. Something Xbox and PlayStation have been doing for years, but is new for Nintendo's legacy.
Well, I would say it's something new for its home consoles.
That's true.
This is akin to the DS to the 3DS, where it plays a lot of the same games. The Switch 2 can play the Switch library natively. Fantastic, great. But it has some newer features. It's almost like you have souped up the system and baked in a few extra accessories, which is kind of funny when we were just talking not that long ago in a previous episode about the 3DS and sort of the death of the handheld device as a concept. Having the Switch 2 sort of perform that is interesting. And on the other end, I do think of this as kind of the second take of the Wii U launch. The Wii U was also a backwards compatible system with Wii, a very successful system. Switch, also extremely successful console. But the Wii U had a much muddier release campaign. The amount of stories of people thinking, even employees selling it, that the Wii U was not a brand new console, but was simply a new accessory for the already existent Wii is damning. No matter how true or untrue all of that is, that perception was there. Thus, there was kind of a DOA feeling on that. Whereas the Switch 2, it knows exactly what it is. And that's probably why Nintendo gave it such a straightforward name. They didn't call it the Super Switch. They didn't call it the Ultra Switch or anything like that. Switch 2, this is another one. This is the most iterative, like linearly iterative launch
Yeah.
that Nintendo has done.
Yeah. Like the launch library of games, there's 20 something games, but a lot of them are either Switch 2 editions of Switch 1 games like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, or games that have been out for a while but not been on Switch, like Cyberpunk 2077, Yakuza 0, Special Edition, or Director's Cut rather, Hitman World of Assassination, Civ 7, or even Street Fighter 6. All of these games that couldn't run on the Switch 1, so they didn't come out. It's funny, with the announcement recently of Persona 4 Remake, they haven't said it's coming to Switch 2, but it's also probably not coming till next year. I'm pretty sure it's going to come to the Switch 2, and I have already put my flag in the ground that when that comes out, we will also see Metaphor ReFantazio and Persona 3 Reload also get a Switch 2 launch. I think it's inevitable at this point.
Yeah, I think that'd be pretty cool. I think the idea of the Switch kind of being where a game arrives a year late, 2 years late, 5 years late is perfectly fine because of that difference of experience where the PS5 or the Xbox have the home console to the TV, big, cool experience. Being able to take those and then put them on the Switch or the Switch 2 was its own unique kind of experience. Personally, I do feel the difference as far as frame rate or performance goes
Right.
between a Switch version and, let's say, a PS5 or a PC version. But also, I'm somebody that doesn't give as much of a shit about that.
Fair.
There's definitely lag issues or things that can become untenable, of course. I remember the PS1 loading times of SNES games and want to tear my hair out right now just thinking about it.
Yeah.
But if it's 30 FPS instead of 60, if it lags a little here and there, for me, that just is. If it's still a fun experience, I enjoy it. Do I enjoy how much better Pokemon Legends Arceus plays on my Switch 2 right now? Yeah, no, I do enjoy that. That is absolutely the first game I played on this once I got it. I didn't get Mario Kart World until afterwards. I only played it the first time literally last night, if I'm being honest. It is nice to see those upgrades. It is nice to see all of that. And it is a very funny, I don't know, state of the market, state of what is expected or whatever, that, yeah, a lot of the launch titles for the Switch 2, they're third-party games. They are games from the past come to, and that is a nice, I suppose, continuation of Switch's historical flat circle that is playing NES games and the latest titles together. We're also getting things like the Bravely Default HD remaster on top of that, along with Yakuza 0 and Suikoden and all of these others.
I think also the different case with the launch library of the Switch 2 is like the PS5 and like the Xbox Series X and S, it has the library of the entire previous console generation at its disposal to download. Also, speaking of download, the best thing so far about the Switch 2, and I'm being a little facetious, is that there is no lag loading the goddamn eShop anymore. I just never understood why, in the internet age we live, that goddamn page took so long to load, but it did. But now it's instantaneous, and I don't know what they changed, but...
Well, Matt, there was just so much on the eShop.
Right, yes.
There was just so much.
It had to load it all.
Had to load it all. We needed to give you everything. As somebody who doesn't go on the eShop all of that much, I did notice that it took a little while to load. I mostly was doing that for checking things on Nintendo Switch Online and not much else. And maybe downloading some game codes. That does get into one of my personal sticking points with the Nintendo Switch 2. And that is not just downloadable titles. That's part of the market right now. We now have game key cards, which are physical cards that are essentially dongles that allow you to then download the entire game. I am not the first person to express displeasure with that. I will not be the last, and I will certainly continue to. There are so many games that are out in the world that I don't feel like picking up as a physical collector because I'm only going to get half the game. The fact that the PlayStation Vita has Final Fantasy X 10-2 HD Remaster on it is brilliant, incredible. I would love to play it. Except Final Fantasy X is the only one that's natively on the card, and it comes with a download key for Final Fantasy X-2. So if you are buying that game used, you are not getting gun mages. And if you can accept that, cool. Right now, we're recording this in early July. Right now, there is a petition in the EU for the Stop Killing Games initiative to start creating legislation for games as service, just cutting off games and just stopping service, and you can no longer access games. So the idea of, great, I've got these games on my shelf. Oh, it's not just an empty case with a code in it. There's a cart in there, and that cart is fucking useless if it no longer has support. There is physical degradation. This happens. This is fine. Nothing lasts forever. But if you are paying for a product, and it comes with a physical product, and that physical product is nothing but an extra step towards a digital-only product that could eventually lose service, I have a problem with that.
I mean, I've been really angry about it. And like, there are parts of it that still work just fine. You can still lend it to other people. If you lend it to other people, they instantly download the game. They have access to the game as if it were on the cartridge. So from a lending library standpoint, still works. Fine.
Right, of course.
My biggest issue here, like you said, is that there is no point to getting these physical games if it's just keying up the download. I was so excited. I didn't own a physical copy of Yakuza 0. I have the trilogy, HD remasters. I have Like a Dragon. I have a few of the games in the series. Others I've gotten digitally just because I've gotten review codes, and it's the way they do that these days. But I was so excited to buy a physical copy of the director's cut of Yakuza 0 for Switch 2 because I didn't have one. Then I found out it was a game key card. So I didn't bother. I just went home and downloaded the game, which is fine and plays great, and I'm loving it, and that's fine. The problem here, like you said, if we're cut off from the internet for some reason, this game doesn't exist. Now, I got a digital code for Mario Kart because I got it in a bundle. You got a physical copy, right?
Yes. Yes, I did.
The first-party Nintendo games, as far as we know, will all be on the cartridge. That's what Nintendo has said. But basically, every third-party developer so far, except one, has released their games as game key cards. Capcom has done it. Sega has done it. The only company that didn't, and arguably proves that everyone should be able to, is CD Projekt Red put all of Cyberpunk 2077, the Ultimate Edition, with the DLC, all on the goddamn cartridge. It all fits. If they can do it, literally anyone can. I have this game on PC already. I really kind of want to buy it on Switch, A, to have a portable copy because I really did like it, but B, to encourage this behavior because, like, they're the only ones in the launch window who did that. Square Enix, Capcom, Sega, all of them did this key card nonsense. It's like getting a physical Steam key. If the Steam key was a USB instead of a piece of paper or whatever. I have more of a problem with this than just straight up digital download games.
Agreed.
Digital download games, you're getting what you pay for. It is face value. Game key cards, this is what I call the parent problem. A parent will buy this game for their kid because they want that game. Well, let's use... Fuck J.K. Rowling. We're cursing a lot this episode. But use Hogwarts Legacy as an example because it's a property that kids like.
Right.
Say a parent buys this Harry Potter game for their kids because they know they like Harry Potter, which is a problem in and of itself. If it's a game key, they're going to bring it home to their kid. If it's a child-protected Switch for just their kid, it's not going to have the internet. They're not going to have an online presence. The parents don't want them to be on the internet unsupervised, which is totally legit.
Absolutely.
They're not going to be able to play the game. It's just adding an extra step, and I call it the parent problem because it's a lot. Whenever a video game comes out that has some kind of issue or some kind of finicky pieces or bits or caveat, it makes it harder for the people who don't play video games. For people like you and me, we're angry and frustrated for a whole host of reasons, but it's not going to hinder us in the sense that it's not going to stop us from playing these games. But for anyone who is less experienced with games, new to games, the Switch was a lot of people's first console. I imagine the Switch 2 will also be a lot of people's first console. This is just an unnecessary complication that makes almost zero sense. In fact, I would say it makes zero sense. I can't even think of a reason why to do this other than to cut corners and save money.
Right, which I would imagine is why a lot of the third-party developers and publishers are choosing to go the game keycard route. I would imagine it is a much easier situation. I don't know the details right now. We are speaking off the top of our head a little bit here with what knowledge we currently have as of, July 7th, 2025, as we are recording this. Why not date this? It's an of the time kind of recording. To the parent problem idea, it is different than previous Nintendo generations when the Super Nintendo came out and it was a thing of, well, you already have a Nintendo. What do you need a Super Nintendo for? What do you mean it doesn't play the Nintendo games? You already have a perfectly good Nintendo. Level of lack of understanding.
Right.
To today, where those kids are now parents.
Mm-hmm.
I know that because I'm the same age and friends with a lot of them.
Yeah,
we both
true.
are.
Yeah.
So there is a certain amount of, even those people our age who didn't grow up playing that or don't play games now, there is a little bit of the understanding, as well as the fact that, look, this is also a bit about where software as subscription has gone. The notion of a parent who is even moderately tech savvy, even has to use some specific kind of tech in their job, there's probably a greater layman understanding of, oh, I can't use this unless I have this. I need to authorize this in order for this to happen. What is more likely to happen? I don't have personal experience with the game keycards right now, but parent buys the game for the kid. Kid can't go on the internet with the system. The parent has to unlock it. It is still creating an extra step, and it is creating a frustration point and a friction for the person who wants to play the game, the person who is authorizing the game, and the whole transactional nature. But it does feel hollow.
Yeah, I think part of that hollowness comes from Nintendo being one of the leading game creators, experience creators, to pivot this way. While they've always had libraries for a while online, they have always pushed physical product. For God's sakes, on the Switch, there were games that only worked as physical products. Ring Fit, Labo.
Their history as a toy maker.
Right. The thing that hurts the most, I think, for me is it feels this is the most corporate move Nintendo has ever done in a way that just feels gross. And look, they're a company. They don't owe us anything. But the whimsical facade of Nintendo lasted a lot longer. We all believed in Santa Claus, even though I'm Jewish, for a lot longer. Going with the majority here.
Yeah, right.
A lot longer in this fiction, even though it was probably behind the scenes, not even that. So that kind of bums me out. And I think Geoff and I are going to probably do a full topic on the key cards and like the degradation of physical product in our society and how we're moving away from it, especially as we continue to basically live under a fascist regime. And I am terrified that we're going to lose access to digital stuff that we need because they deem it too political. Whole other can of worms.
Yeah, consider these our initial impressions.
Right. But I will say, beyond that caveat, I've been very happy with the Switch 2. I mean, look, I went from an OLED screen back to a regular LCD screen, but because it's bigger and brighter, I don't notice the difference that much. The size difference is incredible because it's actually bigger than the Steam Deck screen-wise, which is nice. For my aging eyes, I can see things. And so I've really enjoyed it. The Joy-Cons are bigger, still not great, comfortable. I am counting the days till Hori makes new split pad Pros for the Switch 2. But all in all, I really enjoy the system. It runs well. Battery life isn't great. Probably with any AAA game is 2 to 3 hours. Indie games you can probably get longer, which is on par with the Steam Deck. Steam Deck was about the same. High-powered games killed the deck quicker. Indie games or retro games can run longer. It's funny, though. I haven't played a ton of Switch 2 games. I said I got Yakuza and Mario at launch. Played Mario Kart a bunch online with friends. Really fun. Really enjoy it. The new Knockout Tour, I think, is a great feature. It's the best way I've seen Battle Royale implemented in something else that made sense.
Yeah. But we're both kind of waiting for the same game. We're both waiting for Donkey Kong.
Right. And I played a little bit of Yakuza, mostly as a test to myself to go, all right, is this really a next-gen console? Because, like, Mario Kart looks great. Don't get me wrong. Gorgeous, expressive sprites, gorgeous landscapes, all of that stuff. But, like, it's cartoony, it's stylized, so that can hide a lot of things. But I know how Yakuza looks. I know how Yakuza 0 looks. And I played it on a PC when I first played it. And when I booted it up, I took a million screenshots, started sending them to you and Dave Jackson, a bunch of other people, because I just couldn't believe how good it looked. I was just blown away. No stutters, ran great, smooth 60 FPS. And so that to me was like, all right, this console is that next level. But ironically, the games I've been playing most on it right now are indie games, which also happen to look great and run great. They always have. Or like decade-old PS Vita games. I got into Digimon thanks to the curse on the internet that is Kenneth Shepard, who we love, has gotten way too many of us to play Digimon Story, Cyber Sleuth. And I've been loving it. But I will say, the fun thing about playing that on the Switch 2 is there are no load times. Like, they are non-existent. It's quite incredible. And I'm sure it ran pretty well on the Switch 1, but I'm sure there were tons of load times on the original PS Vita. It's fun to just kind of pop into new areas or travel around and have little to no issue. That's the game I've been playing the most on it right now, and it runs great, but like, it doesn't really take advantage of the Switch 2 hardware in the same way as other stuff does. I did test out like Mario Odyssey and Pokemon Scarlet just to see the updates. Scarlet doesn't look better, it looks worse, only because it runs better, but now you can see in clear fidelity how poorly that world was designed.
It's like when TV first went HD and you could
Yeah.
see all of the makeup on the soap opera actors.
Yeah. And like, I'm glad it runs at 60 FPS. I know friend of the show, Dave Jackson, is playing it right now for his show as of when we're recording. And like, I love that game. I like Scarlet a lot more than a lot of other people. And I played it when it was still a broken mess. So I'm glad that people can actually play it now. And I think that's the thing I'm most excited about is like, the biggest complaint about the Switch has always been, well, it doesn't run that good or whatever. And it was my hesitance, right? The Steam Deck for me, like you, also by the nature of a lot of, it's easier to get Steam keys when you're asking for press keys. It's just easier to get stuff for PC because PC is just usually the first that's released, even if it's coming out on other platforms. And so the Steam Deck became our indie machines, but also later, indie games weren't running great on the Switch either. It was starting to feel its age in a lot of ways. And so I'm really excited now that with the Switch 2, I'm going to pivot back for the most part. If I can get it on the Switch 2, I'm going to play it on the Switch 2. I would say the Switch 2 is probably just a little shy of what the PS4 can do. And when we hit the PS4 era, fidelity meant less.
Right.
Things look so good that like you can still tell the difference between a game on the PS4 and a game on the PS5, but that jump and that margin is so small. And so like, whereas the Switch was more akin to an overpowered Xbox 360. It was a little better than that, but not nowhere near the PS4. And so I'm excited to have the Switch 2, mostly because now fidelity won't be an issue for me basically ever. We'll be so close to what it is, and I'm playing it on the small screen anyway because I always play it in handheld. That kind of stuff will matter so much less than it did on the Nintendo Switch 1.
I agree. The past few console generations has had diminishing returns in terms of wow factor. After the jump to HD, essentially, we've had little incremental increases. Load times are faster. The details do get better. The AI can do more simultaneous things within the code of a game. There are improvements. There is moving forward, of course, but it doesn't feel the same as going from Super Mario World to Super Mario 64.
Right.
Or even from Super Mario Bros. 3 to Super Mario World. These were huge jumps, and then the numbers stopped mattering as much. Where the Switch became a home and a haven for a lot of games, new and old. There were first-party Nintendo titles, indie titles that as soon as they came out also were Switch, or ones that later on went, oh, we'll have a Switch version. I remember very early on when the Switch came out, there being the Binding of Isaac Aftermath Edition, and it's like, oh, cool, I could play that on the go now. Fantastic kind of idea. There is something very funny about the fact that the Switch 2 existing in its current, very new state, it kind of being just an upgraded Switch.
Yeah.
What about new exclusive titles? What about them? There will be plenty about them, but at the moment, that's how it feels. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily a good thing. I will say on the hardware end of things, I appreciate the upgrades that the Joy-Con has received. The fact that they do not slide off, but they're the little magnets that you physically push off with the Switch. That feels so much sturdier. The amount of times every Switch that I've played that slides the Joy-Cons on, no matter how new, how nice, how whatever, there's always a little bit of, I suffer from intrusive thoughts. I'm fine admitting that. And the feeling and the thought of like, snap them off the screen, break them, twist just a little bit, is pervasive. Does it get in the way of playing? No, not really. But it does disrupt. So the fact that essentially what am I doing? Pull them off the system, that's by design, is great. It also means that the shoulder buttons are a lot easier to access. You don't need to worry about sliding stuff on and off, again, the same way as the Switch did. It's a nice cleanup on iteration. So when I played Mario Kart World for the first time last night with Sarah, when we did racing, we just each took one of the Joy-Cons. It was way more comfortable than the Switch 1. And being able to access those shoulder buttons just as easily made it much faster. It removed friction. Also, comparing this to something like a Steam Deck. The fact that you can charge it in the dock, that is part of the point, but you also have a USB-C connection at the top, allows for different configurations of how you charge this thing. One of my big stupid complaints about the Steam Deck, you can't charge the thing well while it's in its case, and there is no nice little spot to rest it like there is, say, a dock. Most of the Switch cases that Sarah and I have for the Switches that we have had over the years usually open in the direction of the bottom of the system. So you can leave it in there and plug in a cable. And that's fine. That's how Sarah keeps her Switch Lite charged most of the time. We have a charger that is just USB-C at our entertainment center. She leaves it in front of the TV, in the case, plugs it in, so she can just grab the case, zip it up, and go wherever she needs to go. Again, removal of friction. These are small things that lead to a big difference and are deciding factors in choices. So right now, there are several design ideas that have gone on with the Switch 2 that will be moving forward that I'm going to have to wait and see, and that I do currently have issue with, like the game key cards. But there have been some very nice upgrades and updates to the console itself. Does that mean you need to purchase it right now? That's up to you. I am excited to see what they do with the mouse controls. They're, again, baking in new features, and I want to see what ridiculous shit we can do with that.
I mean, I think it gives a real chance for PC games to be ported to the Switch 2. Thinking games like Baldur's Gate. Ultimately, if you're looking for Nintendo Switch 2, but you don't want to play any of the games that it was launched with, or don't have an existing Switch library, there's no rush here. I mean, the only exclusive to this console that's coming out this year, I believe, is Donkey Kong. As far as I know, Metroid and Pokemon are both Switch 1 and Switch 2 editions. Besides Mario Kart World. Those are the only two full-blown exclusives, as of now, that have been announced that are only on the Nintendo Switch 2.
And you can have a slow launch like that, or a changing of guard, because of that backwards compatibility. The amount of time that there were simultaneous PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, and then PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 releases, I don't see that as a bad thing. One of the reasons Sarah and I moved forward on getting the PlayStation 5 was knowing that we were eventually going to get one. Seeing that there were games that we wanted that had PS5 editions, and it's like, well, we are not going to play Spider-Man Miles Morales until we get a PS5. That was actually the game that got us to do it. And really, that's all it takes. It takes one game. If you were to quiz people on what was the launch lineup of X system, of Y system, some people do know all of them. Some people are genuine freaks who just like to know trivia. And I say this because it takes one to know one. But I am not one who knows all the launch lineup stuff off the top of my head. But what was the launch lineup of the original Xbox? Do we know besides Halo? Some people do. I mean, some people really were excited about Oddworld Munch's Odyssey. Actually, I was one of them. But, are we talking about Cell Damage or Dead or Alive 3 or Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2X for the Xbox? Not really. Halo got it moving. Halo got it going. Or maybe Project Gotham Racing. But does anybody talk about Red Steel as a Nintendo Wii launch title, or do we talk about Wii Sports? And to be fair, the Switch 2 is kind of doing what Nintendo often does with Zelda titles, where there is a launch game that is also on the previous console. Breath of the Wild is on the Wii U. Twilight Princess was a Wii launch title that was also for the GameCube, and in fact has that sort of swapped around thing, so it was very funny. They had to mirror it because Link is infamously left-handed. But they were designing Wii games for right-handed players, so in order for Link to feel right-handed, they had to mirror flip the game.
The entire game.
The entire game. I mean, then they, made the text correct. It's not like reading it. I want that version.
Right,
I want that to be
It's literally just the image flip.
I want that option that you can turn on. It would be so funny. It would be
great.
funny for about 15 minutes, and that's why I just want it to be an option you can turn on, turn off. What we're getting instead for the Switch 2 is Nintendo Switch 2 editions of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I guess this is sort of in the character of what the Switch 2 is. Yes, that is technically a new thing. Any more to that statement? No, I'm done.
Yeah. Ultimately, I'm happy that I bought it. There's no must-have, I think, for it. I like Mario Kart World a lot, but also I'm not a giant Mario Kart fan. I like playing Mario Kart with other people. I got it with the console because it's the cheaper way to get the game. And I have played it a little bit by myself, and it's still fun. Not the title that's drawing me in. Like I said, I'm playing a 10-year-old PS Vita game instead. Admittedly, it's a very good PS Vita game. I'm just
A
saying.
lot of games on the PS Vita are good. You're going to learn. Matt, you're going to learn.
I am. Yeah, if the poll keeps going the way it's going, I'm definitely going to learn.
And I will say that Mario Kart World, the little bit that I played yesterday, at the moment, it is on trajectory to be my favorite Mario Kart game.
Huh.
I do not dislike Mario Kart games. I
Yeah.
really like them. But they have always been a multiplayer, hey, let's hang out and play. And it's a game that, in my head, I'm not bad at it. Sarah's always better.
Yes,
That's
correct.
not I can't win at it, so I hate it. No, I like the game. I love the game. If I get second in most races, I feel like I've done really well if Sarah's there. And those moments when I'm in first place, I'm just like, I will savor this until I lose it in whatever amount of time. But getting to do the free roam after Sarah and I did a Grand Prix felt amazing.
Yeah.
This was where I felt the Switch 2's joie de vivre, power, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And getting to travel from course to course, sort of find little missions, retry them. And Sarah and I were both sitting there going, this will make somebody better at Mario Kart. It will allow them to engage with the mechanics in a fun and meaningful way that also isn't necessarily fling yourself at the rocks while all of your friends are better than you, which
Right.
is a time-tested, tried-and-true way to get better at video games. But you know what? Why not have a multitude of approaches? And this one, I can unlock cool outfits for Waluigi. And
Yes.
really, that's what it's all about for me.
I mean, that's fair. Yeah, I've already got a bunch of Luigi outfits. It does give me ideas for future cosplays for us if we reinvent our Luigi and Waluigi looks. Ultimately, I think it's a really good console. I'm excited for Donkey Kong in a couple weeks. Like, it looks like the Mario Odyssey of this generation. I'm a big Donkey Kong fan in general, love the Donkey Kong Country games. And so for him to get the 3D open world treatment that Kirby got last gen is exciting as well. Mario's had it for a while. I think I'm most excited for it because I like when franchises we love pivot. And we've talked about this when we've done our retrospectives. Like, a lot of people want things to stay. And I know the irony in this saying that when I was younger, I didn't play Metroid Prime because they changed it. I'm older and wiser now, and I've learned my lesson. And I genuinely do get excited when franchises I love go into different genres or different styles. I think there's going to be a lot to love in Donkey Kong Bonanza. Look, the Switch 2's launch was no better, I think, or worse than many others. I think the fact that they came out on time, a lot of folks were able to get them, and that I'm happy with what I have is great. Everyone's saying it's the worst launch lineup ever. It's hyperbole, but I also think people defending this launch lineup is a little ludicrous because it is not great. It's fine. It's not bad. Geoff pointed out, there are those pillar titles that we remember, but like, this one is a lot of old games that if you've already owned those games on other consoles, why would you buy them again if you're not sick in the head like we are and buy multiples of games?
Or need to cover them like we do.
Right. But I think that ultimately the Switch 2 had a solid launch. It's been fun to play. It works. I mean, my biggest complaint still to this day is like the Switch 1, the Switch 2's friends list is useless. It serves no purpose. You can see your friends are online. You can make them a best friend or you can remove them. That's it. The game chat only works with the friends list, but that's the only purpose now. So it does have one more purpose, is that it does work with game chat. But even still, you need Nintendo Switch Online to use game chat, as far as I know anyway. You know, it's not integrated with every game. I'm not sure if you can just game chat without playing a game. You might be able to, which would be a useful tool for it. But also, every other platform you can message people. And admittedly, I don't message people on PlayStation often, but it just feels like they're still a step behind. And I get why it's, you know, so people can't randomly message children on their Switch accounts. Like, I know that there's protective measures for it, but like, it just feels like, why have a friends list? Especially since most games have in-game friends lists now. I think of like Street Fighter and Monster Hunter, all these other game franchises that have friends lists incorporated into the games, a lot of the Ubisoft games. So, and the homepage still looks like crap. I long for our 3DS or Wii homepages with full customability and multiple rows.
I mean, that'd be great. And look, we are far past the age of PictoChat. Nintendo had means of messaging each other. And yeah, also look, the Nintendo DS was a phenomenally successful device for Nintendo. If we were to judge it by the 7 games that were its launch library, we'd be singing a different tune. Tell me how Feel the Magic XYXX is the greatest game of all time. You know what? I want to hear your thesis on that one, but this is why I am saying sort of my little negatives, my downs, my things I'm worried about, but also the things I'm excited about and the things that I am currently enjoying about my Nintendo Switch 2. It's certainly not a must-buy for everybody, and it hasn't reached a fever pitch of, here's that thing. Maybe it'll be Donkey Kong. I'm so excited to destroy everything, and to suffer the consequences, the donkey consequences.
Oh my
But
God.
these are just the observations. And so this is why launch windows, because there is the launch lineup, and then there is that sort of long after games come out. And we've been victim of this and guilty of this on this show, in fact, of those times like, well, yeah, that was a launch title, wasn't it? No, that came out in like the first 3 months or so. Right. Super Smash Bros. Melee came out pretty quickly after the GameCube came out, but it is not a launch title. Sort of in the same window as we're talking about Donkey Kong here. These are those things to keep in mind, but we're also all very anxious and angry and feeling a lot of things right now, and video games are a great way to feel those feelings, and so the Switch 2 gets to be the device for that right now.
Yeah. I think that there's a bigger conversation to be had about how consoles are launched and launch games and windows for sure. And we've talked about them in bits and pieces here and in other retrospectives. And I do like that we've used our console retrospectives to loop in those conversations about launch titles, games that came out with the system, and initial games. Like, everybody remembers their first game on the console that they bought. I mean, again, for a lot of us, I'm assuming for the Switch, it was Zelda Breath of the Wild. It was that for a lot of people, but not everybody. In that same way that while Mario Kart was the launch title I got with this console, it's not really what I think of with it, just because, again, it's a multiplayer sometimes game, not a game that I'm obsessed with. The game I spent the most time with the week I got my Switch 2 was Pipistrello and the Cursed Yo-Yo, because I was working on a review and I had been playing it on the Switch 1 and I transferred everything to the Switch 2 and it played great, looked great, and that I'm going to tie much more closer in memory to the launch of this console than anything else because it's the first game I spent an exorbitant amount of time with.
Man, I need to go play Anton Blast on the Switch 2. That thing must feel amazing.
I mean, that's also something I did do when I got my console because I guested on Tales from the Backlog to talk about Switch impressions, is play a bunch of games just to see how they run. Like Mario Odyssey was already a gorgeous game, but the update makes it look even better. I didn't pay for the Kirby update. It's like 10 or 20 bucks to update Kirby, which was kind of a bummer. But I imagine that looks great. I know that if you have Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pass, you get the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom updates for free. And so I do want to go back to those games just to mess around. I joked about buying Cyberpunk 2077 earlier because I just want to reward them for their good behavior. While that is partially true, I am also really curious to see how it runs on the Switch 2 because, like, I know that The Witcher 3 looked like piss poor garbage on the Switch 1, but everyone I know who only could play it that way said it still played great. It was a fun game that looked muddled and muddy, but like you could still play it and it ran pretty solid, I think at 30 frames per second. The story and voice acting, all of that's still there. So like if they could do that on the Switch, I'm excited now that they've course corrected from the mess that Cyberpunk 2077 was when it launched. I'm actually kind of excited to see what it looks like on Switch because I think it's kind of going to be the tester, the pusher for what this console can do, along with Yakuza and Split Fiction and a few other like very pretty AAA titles.
We're in that age and time of sort of a wait and see and seeing where it all lands and seeing what it all is. I suppose this is the time for folks to, how much does voting with your dollars work, not work? That's not for the purposes of this current topic. But yeah, get the things that you want to see out there, the things that you want to see happen. I mean, there is an argument to be made. We often talk about we want games to take longer to make, to be made shorter, so that the people who make these games can be not worked to death in crunch in making things in major studios, certainly. And with the amount of layoffs and everything going on in the industry, that is paramount, but that will result in more expensive games. But the thing is, will the increased price tag of the Switch 2 games trickle down to those people? Probably not. But this is, yet again, an awkward phase in that, I think.
I mean, with the inevitable release of GTA 6, if anyone could charge $100 for a single video game, it's Rockstar and it's that game. I don't want that, and I don't think anyone wants that. There is a world where that could happen, right? We're almost there now, and I do wonder how this is going to pivot, especially since we can't claim the cost of production of the CDs is where they're adding the price tag. That's just clearly less and less true. I do have one more complaint before we wrap up about the Switch 2. The pivot to Express micro SD cards, which is a new format, is aggravating. The thing about micro SD cards, for those who haven't had to buy them for a console recently, is they are expensive to start, but when a new format comes out, they're pricey at launch, and like better versions, more people make them, the prices go down. When this console launched, there were like 3 manufacturers who made micro Express SD cards, and all of them were either 128 or 256, which is a decent amount of storage, but I want 512 or a terabyte because I want one. I don't want to buy multiple. I want to have to run out of space.
And if we're going the route of game key cards, we're going to have to download a lot of games.
Right. And I was aggravated that like the official Nintendo Samsung one was only 256. Then a few others only had like 128 and 256. A few now have the 512s, but they are insanely expensive. One manufacturer just released it for like $119, and it's a champagne problem, right? It's not like I don't need the memory card. I could delete games as I finish them and then re-download them later, but
friction.
Right, it's friction, and for me, it's what makes my system complete, right? Like I bought a 512 for my original Nintendo Switch and then never needed to buy another memory card again. Because also back then, a lot of Switch games were pretty small comparatively. Because that's the other thing and why we need these bigger cards. AAA games are going to be bigger to download as the graphical fidelity increases. The reason a lot of Switch games didn't take up that much space is because they were a previous generation behind. But like whenever the new Call of Duty comes out, whatever that is, and it's on Switch, like those games have been laughably huge for years. Like you're going to need an entire memory card just for the one game. And now, again, I think timing was a lot of this, right? They wanted this to come out in the summer. They wanted to get ahead of the holidays. Is there a world in which this came out 2 or 3 months from now and maybe some of this stuff was set up better? It's possible. I don't know. But I'm just frustrated because as part of my personal journey with the Switch 2 and my complete experience, when I buy a new modern console, depending on the storage space, if I can buy insertable memory that's easy to access at a cheap price, I do, so it feels complete. It's ready and it's good to go. And I just couldn't do that this time, and it bummed me out a bit.
Understandably. To Nintendo's credit, if it was a rushed launch, at least it didn't announce it the day it launched.
That's true.
Which a previous console has done. And as obnoxious as currently getting the micro SD Express cards can be, it doesn't seem as though they're proprietary, which is another mistake that consoles have made in the past.
That's true.
So this episode is a moment in time. These frustrations may be eased. They may get worse. But one of the reasons why Matt and I wanted to do this, when we normally don't do super current event-y things, is to look at a console from a company and that does a gameplay experience that Matt and I both love, and Sarah loves as well, that is currently at an interesting hinge point or transition point, bottleneck. However it will be shaped, we won't know until time moves forward and we get to look back. And we've been doing a lot of retrospectives and looking back, and this is just kind of a, well, look. Personally, the fact that they didn't pack in Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, I am regarding as a personal insult.
It's so stupid. It's so stupid. It just doesn't make sense.
This is, again, I feel, the thesis of my main frustration.
Yeah.
There are a lot of aspects, games, things, news, anticipations about the Nintendo Switch 2 that I am here for, on their side, ready for, but for one thing. And very much that idea of, but we're just going to move it one step further. We're going to put one extra cost behind it. We're not going to pack it in. We're going to have just one extra step in making it happen. It's a Switch 2, but it's one step too far in a lot of cases, if you want to be cute about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good button for this. Like, you'd think a company like Nintendo, where Wii Sports to this day is one of the highest selling Nintendo games of all time because it was packaged in with the Wii. Mm-hmm. When people talk about the Wii, they talk about Wii Sports. Full stop, hands down, without a doubt. Something like Welcome Tour costing $10, which arguably, in modern economy is not, for most middle-class people, is not a lot of money.
If you're buying the Switch 2, what's another $10? but it's another $10.
Right. It's the point that we were making earlier about how the Nintendo that we grew up with, which may have existed in this form and we just didn't know about it, now like the gloves and mask are off. Nintendo is a company chasing profit. They're a company in capitalist society. Of course they are.
Always
But like
happened.
it's just more obvious now. Like they were a toy company first, right? Packing in stuff like Wii Sports, having pack-in games generally, having these features and other things that added whimsy seems to be less and less of it. And I would have never thought that I would worry about that with Nintendo. But again, the Welcome Tour is another thing. It's like, I've heard the people who've played it say it's really charming and wonderful.
Right.
But no one I know who's played it says it's worth $10. It's worth your $10. And so my guess is Nintendo's going to double back at some point and release it for free or add it to the Plus expansion pack. It's another nail in the coffin of Nintendo caring more about profits and money than being a toy company, which again has been the case longer. We just didn't see through the facade, but they're definitely not making any attempt to hide it now. And as someone who viewed them as this magical piece of video gaming, it is kind of a bummer.
And I mean, in the past, I feel a lot of hardware has had to be smart. Gunpei Yokoi's idea of lateral thinking with withered technology was a great way to make fun and desirable experiences using low-cost pieces, easily found and put together. So you have joy and whimsy because it actually had a strong rate of return if you could put it together and could make it happen. This is where Nintendo's magic and whimsy was. They could give you something joyful and magical because it was cheap to them, and it genuinely was, by happenstance, and thus you wanted it. You want the good thing, so they make a good thing.
Yeah.
But one of the other reasons why there's a lot of storage issues, everything else that goes on in games, is the fact that as space has gotten bigger, as accessibility to design has opened up, which is not a bad thing, but it does mean that there are a lot of poorly compressed games. There are games that take up entirely too much space, more than they need to, like literal hard disk space. Games that, by any which way, however they come in, there's a lot of, well, we don't have to worry about making that fit anymore. The story of making Pokemon Gold and Silver fit on the cartridge, so they needed Satoru Iwata to come in and fix that, and then did such a good job that they could fit the Kanto region in there. That story can still happen, but it's not by necessity. It's not by the nature of what's going on. We can just kind of, for lack of a better term, and this is oversimplifying it, you can just make it and put it up there. Those little cute things of a little bit of whimsy to be more desirable and easily accessible, those margins have gotten slimmer and slimmer. And I guess this is the breaking point.
Look, there'll be plenty of whimsy to go around when Donkey Kong comes out. I'm sure it's going to be charming and great, like all
We're gonna
Nintendo
have fun.
games are. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, it's worth thinking about, and I think there's a future topic somewhere about the life cycle of a video game. This is kind of a tangent, but I often go back to the Mass Effect trilogy, not just because it means so much to me, but that all came out on one console generation. It was all on the Xbox 360, 3 massive third-person RPGs. And that just never happens anymore. We technically got 2 Spider-Man games in one console generation. It was a half step because Miles Morales was a shorter game made to be sectioned off, cordoned off, smaller story. And I heard it didn't run great on PS4. It was designed for PS5. I think about how we got Final Fantasy Remake with PS4, Rebirth with PS5. We're probably not going to see Reunion or whatever the third one's called till the PS6. And that's a bummer. They decided to split one of the greatest games of all time into a trilogy, which by and large, I think was a mistake to begin with. But now it's a trilogy spread across 3 video game console generations. That means that if you want to play the full game, the PS6 will have to play PS4 and 5 games. It just doesn't seem feasible. And so I think there's a larger conversation to be had about the growth of video games and where are we going? It's that whole smaller games with worse graphics made by less people. I want that also because I just think if the layoffs prove anything, is this current landscape is untenable. They're bad, the layoffs are bad, and this growth, this ballooning of this medium that we all love, I think is in trouble. And all of the stuff we've complained about with the Switch 2 is just a small fraction of that. And I think there's a bigger discussion to be had about why it's bad, actually, and what we can do to fix it, which I don't know that there's anything Geoff and I can do, but there's got to be something people who work in this space can do. I think it's worth exploring.
What we can do is talk about it, which is here we are, and keep the conversation going, start it up, continue with it. This is mostly why we like talking about indies. We like those. And the most optimistic, but probably looking for a silver lining here thing is hopefully there is growth after the fire. But that is trying to be optimistic, not as a goal or being like, it's going to be great. Just trying to keep my optimism. At this point, we put it to you, listener. Do you have a Nintendo Switch 2? Do you enjoy it? What games are you looking forward to? How do you feel about its hardware, about its software, about the way these things are going? Are there games that you're excited to go back from the Nintendo Switch that are going to look so much better on the Switch 2? And they will. Are you somebody who doesn't want to get it? Why do you not want to get it? Please keep the swearing to a minimum. Don't swear much more than we do. You know what? That's just a request. I'm not a cop. But we do want to hear from you. Please reach out. There's so many great ways to get in touch with us. We are Fun and Games Pod across all social media that we are active upon, which as of this episode is Blue Sky, Instagram, and Tumblr. You can email us at funandgamespod@gmail.com. Let us know what you thought of this episode, what you thought of previous episodes, what you'd like us to talk about, and who you'd like us to talk with on future episodes. You can go to certainpov.com and find not only other fantastic Certain POV podcasts, but a permanent invite link to our Discord server where a lot of these discussions continue, where a lot of us are posting about game news and just figuring out what's our next step forward on these kinds of things. If you like what we do and want to support us, have the means to, or just want a one-stop shop of all the things Matt and I are working on in this space, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/funandgamespod. There is a free tier if you want to be part of the polls for our console retrospectives or just be part of the RSS feed of everything we put out. You can start there, but we do appreciate each and every one of our patrons, and we do want to shout out those up on the high scoreboard. Today, the high scoreboard is Alex Lavelle, Case Aiken, Daniel Nyden, Alejandro Alves, Chris Copleen, Curly Bright, Film It Yourself, Patrick Edwards, Robert Prine, and Sean Bowen. Thank you so much for your support. Please enter your initials. You can also lend out your initials to your Nintendo account family group members. Just connect your family group member system via local wireless when you want to lend your initials. Both systems must also be connected to the internet.
Oh, man, that might be your best one yet. Yes, Geoff was actually reading the terms of service. Anyway, if you want to do something for us that's free but helps the podcast, it costs no dollars to rate and review us on your podcast platform of choice. It really does help boost us in the algorithm, so when folks are searching for podcasts about the Nintendo Switch 2, they can find us and listen to us and join in the conversation. So please, Spotify, Pocket Casts, Good Pods, Apple Podcasts, wherever you can rate or review, please do it. It only takes a few minutes. And I know there's some of those folks out there who listen who haven't reviewed us or rated us in places, so I'm watching you.
Whether you are chomping at the bit to let us know your hot takes about the Switch 2, whether you are on the Discord, or whether this is your first episode of Fun and Games, thank you so much for being here. We couldn't do this without you. This is a conversation. Thank you for being a part of it. I'm Geoff Moonen.
And I'm Matt A.K. Stormageddon.
And happy gaming.
Hey, Nerf herders.
You sure you want to go with that?
Hey, everyone?
There we go. More inviting.
Have you ever had a movie that you really wanted to love, but something holds you back?
Or one that you did love in spite of a flaw?
Well, I'm Case Aiken.
And I'm Sam Alisea.
And on Another Pass, we sit down with cool guests to look at movies that we find fascinating.
But flawed.
And we try to imagine what could have been done when they were made to give them that little push.
We're not experts. We just believe in criticism.
Constructive criticism.
Sure.
So come take another pass at some movies with us.
And every now and then, we can celebrate movies that did it on their own, too.
You can find us at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Pass it on.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.